Imagine this. You are standing at the edge of a firelit cave. The wind is rising. The air is getting colder by the minute. Across the flames, someone is watching you too. You have no flowers, no clever lines, no perfect timing. You have 30 seconds before another male makes his move. 30 seconds before the group decides where the next bond begins. You probably picture prehistoric romance as simple, raw, honest, almost pure. Two people, one fire, nature doing the rest. But that version is a lie. The real story was colder, stranger, and far less romantic than people want to admit. Today, we are going through 20 shocking ways cave people actually found partners. And by the end, you will understand why love in prehistory was usually built on pressure first, feeling second. If you like history with the comfort stripped out of it, subscribe. On number 20, proximity was almost the whole game. You think finding a partner meant searching. It usually meant looking around. Your world was not full of strangers. It was a small group you had known for years, maybe your entire life. The person you ended up with was probably someone you had already watched eat, sleep, cough, limp, and survive through bad weather. That changes everything. Mystery disappears. Romance shrinks. Choice becomes very small, very fast. And here is the ugly part. When a group is that small, attraction does not feel like freedom. It feels like math. Who is alive? Who is available? Who is useful? In a world like that, tenderness existed, but options did not. This one is rough. On number 19, smell mattered more than words ever could. You imagine eye contact, posture, maybe confidence. But before language did all the heavy lifting, the body was already talking. Scent carried information about health, stress, diet, and immune compatibility. A person who smelled right may not have been beautiful in the modern sense. They may simply have signaled better odds for survival and stronger offspring. And do not make this cleaner than it was. These were people wrapped in old hides, sleeping near smoke, living close to blood, sweat, damp fur, and stale fat. Nobody smelled fresh. Attraction was working through the dirt, not around it. Nature was not interested in elegance. But that was only the beginning. On number 18, the body was the first resume. There were no salaries, no houses, no polished status symbols. If you wanted to signal value, your body had to do it for you. Scars showed survival. Muscle showed function. Endurance showed reliability. A healed fracture was not just damage, it was proof that you had taken a hit and stayed in the game. That matters because prehistoric partnership was tied to risk. If you paired with someone weak, careless, or brittle, you were taking a direct gamble on your own future. This was not about fantasy. It was about who looked least likely to collapse when the season turned bad. Now comes the part people like to ignore. On number 17, female choice existed, but it had limits. A lot of modern people flatten the past and imagine women as passive prizes. The reality was harsher and more practical than that. A capable woman had enormous value in a small group. She could gather calories, process hides, maintain tools, carry knowledge, and keep children alive. That gave her leverage. Real leverage. But it was fragile. Injury could ruin it. Illness could ruin it. Age could shorten that window fast in a world with no cushion. So yes, choice may have existed, but it existed inside a brutal countdown. Nobody had time to age gracefully in the Ice Age. And this is where the fantasy starts cracking.
On number 16, rival males did not always fight. Sometimes they just made your life worse. People imagine prehistoric competition as one dramatic duel.
More often, it may have looked smaller and meaner than that. A rival could undercut your status without ever throwing a punch. He could question your usefulness. He could make you look weak in a hunt, selfish around food, slow in danger, unreliable in front of everyone who mattered. That kind of pressure is easy to underestimate. In a tiny group, reputation sticks fast. Once people stop trusting you, everything gets harder. Fire feels farther away. Food arrives later. Eyes stay on you longer. Lose enough status and you do not just lose face. You lose your place. The ugly truth is this. On number 15, sometimes new partners came from other groups, and not gently. No written record spells it out for us, but trauma patterns on ancient remains, along with what we know from later small-scale societies, point to a world where raiding did happen. And when groups collided, women were often part of the prize. Not courted, not persuaded, taken. Think about what that means for a second. One night changes everything. Different voices, different rules, different geography, different fire. The people around you do not know your habits, your grief, your dead, or your language. And now your survival depends on learning them fast. Romantic, if you ignore the terror. As brutal as that sounds, the next part was worse. On number 14, grief did not buy you much time. In a small prehistoric group, death was not shocking because it was rare. It was shocking because it was close. A partner could be there in the morning and gone by the next season. Illness, falls, infection, cold, animals, hunger. The list was long, the margin was thin. And when someone died, the group could not always afford a long collapse around that loss. People still needed food, children still needed carrying, fires still needed tending. An unattached adult might be absorbed into a new bond quickly, not because grief was fake, but because survival was louder. That is one of the coldest things about the past. Your heart could break, and the group would still expect you to function by sunset. The version you have probably imagined is too clean. On number 13, age gaps were often practical. Modern people hear age gap and immediately think scandal, manipulation, or taboo. Prehistoric groups were usually thinking something else. Stability, skill, knowledge. An older male who had already survived multiple bad seasons may have been a safer choice than a younger one with strength but no proven judgment. That does not make it tender. It makes it understandable. In a dangerous world, experience can look more attractive than youth. Not because it is romantic, but because it lowers the chance of dying stupidly in winter. But that was only the beginning. On number 12, giving food was not sweet. It was a signal. Picture this. A hunt ends well for once. Meat comes back to camp. Everyone is hungry. And instead of distributing it evenly, someone places the best portion in front of one person. That is not just generosity. That is a message. I can provide. I can choose where resources go. I am showing the group what this connection might look like. That gesture carries weight because calories were never abstract. Meat was warmth tomorrow. Fat was strength next week. A gift like that could start a bond, test a bond, or announce one. In a world built around shortage, even affection looked like resource strategy. This one is almost too dark to say out loud. On number 11, older people may have shaped far more of this than young people wanted. We love stories where two people choose each other against the world. Prehistory was often the reverse.
The world chose first. Elders had reasons to care about who bonded with whom. Labor balance mattered. Conflict inside the group mattered. Genetic diversity mattered. Long-term stability mattered. That means personal attraction may not have been the first filter. Group need was.
If an older woman in the group looked at two younger people and saw a useful alliance, that opinion may have carried more weight than either of their feelings. There was no higher court to appeal to, no private apartment to disappear into. Just the group. And the group remembered everything. Now comes the part people like to ignore. On number 10, intimacy had almost no privacy. This is one of the hardest things for a modern person to really feel. There were no walls, no locked doors, no bedroom at the end of a hallway. You slept close to other bodies because warmth mattered more than personal space. You woke up near the same people, ate near them, rested near them, recovered near them. So attraction did not grow in privacy. It grew in public. The first glance, the first touch, the first pattern everyone started noticing. All of it happened in front of the group. That could create accountability. It could also create claustrophobia. There is something deeply unnerving about knowing your relationship is not fully yours. It belongs, at least in part, to everyone watching. Now add hunger to that picture. On number 9, rejection was dangerous in ways modern people do not feel. Today, rejection hurts your pride. In prehistory, it could damage your position. If you made things tense, awkward, hostile, or unstable after being rejected, the consequences did not stay emotional. A small group notices discomfort fast. People start choosing sides. They share less. They trust less. They pull away. And when that happens in a harsh environment, your health can follow your reputation downhill. You get colder first, hungrier next, less defended after that. Loneliness was not just sadness. It could become exposure. That is a very different kind of heartbreak. This is where people break. On number 8, signs of illness could crush your chances fast. Prehistoric people did not understand pathogens. They did understand patterns. Rash, cough, weakness, limping, sudden fatigue, wounds that smelled wrong. Those signs told the group one thing: risk. A person showing them may have been treated with distance long before they were treated with sympathy. That sounds cruel, because it is cruel, but it is also brutally legible. If one person looked dangerous to the health of the group, the instinct was to create space. That would affect food, touch, status, and partnership all at once. You did not need medical language to know who people had stopped wanting near the fire. Here is what nobody tells you. On number 7, movement tore people apart. Groups moved because food moved, water moved. Seasons forced movement whether you liked it or not. And when people from different groups spent time together during abundance, bonds could form in exactly the wrong moment. Because eventually, one group turns one way and the other goes somewhere else. That kind of separation is easy to underestimate when you live in a world of maps and phones. Back then, a horizon could become a grave marker for a relationship. Not because the bond was weak, because distance was stronger. A person disappearing with another group might not be away. They might simply be gone. And this next one is genuinely disturbing. On number 6, grooming was intimacy. Not poetry, not flowers, not whispered confessions. Grooming. Cleaning hair, checking skin, picking out parasites, helping with wounds,
spending quiet time in physical closeness while doing something practical and unpleasant. That kind of contact matters because it requires trust, repetition, tolerance,
familiarity with someone else's body in its least glamorous state. In a modern film, romance is clean. In prehistory, intimacy could look like helping someone with the dirt, not escaping it. That may be one of the strangest things to accept. Tenderness was real. It just wore uglier clothes. And for women, the reality could be even harsher. On number 5, keeping a child alive raised your value fast. Infant mortality was brutal. Every group lived with that fact, whether they had words for it or not. A woman who had brought a child through the most dangerous early years had demonstrated something enormous in that world. Competence, health, stamina, luck. Probably all 4. And that would change how she was seen. It would not erase grief. It would not make her safe. But it could shift her status inside the group. The dark part is that private sorrow and public value do not move together. A woman could be carrying loss and power at the same time, and nobody around her needed to stop and name the contradiction. History usually skips this part. On number 4, humor may have made people attractive for a reason that had nothing to do with being cute. In dangerous settings, the person who can lower panic has value. Someone who can make others laugh in a tense moment is not just entertaining, they are regulating the room. They are showing confidence without a spear. They are proving they can think while everyone else feels pressure. That matters in mate choice more than people assume. Charm in a hard world is not softness. It is control. It is timing. It is showing the group that your mind does not fall apart the second fear enters the cave. What makes this worse is how normal it all was. On number 3, long-term bonds were real. This matters because people often swing too far in the other direction and imagine prehistoric relationships as all force, no feeling. That is too simple. Some bonds lasted because long cooperation works. 2 people who know each other's habits can survive better together than 2 strangers forced into the same routine every season. And there are traces of care in the record that are hard to ignore. Individuals with serious disability surviving longer than they should have. Bodies showing signs that someone helped them for years, not days. Someone stayed. Someone carried. Someone fed. The horror is not that love was absent. The horror is that even real love had to live inside a world trying to crush it. This one is almost too dark to say out loud. On number 2, status collapse could take your partner with it. In modern life, someone can lose a job and still remain lovable. Prehistoric groups were less forgiving because status was tied directly to function. If injury took your strength, or if failure damaged your standing badly enough, it could change the way the group saw your future. And that changes the way a partner sees it too. This is not about shallow affection. It is about exposure to risk. Staying loyal to someone who can no longer help may sound noble in a safe society. In a dangerous one, it can look like volunteering to go down with them. This was not drama. It was survival. And this is where the fantasy falls apart completely. On number 1, most people did not find a partner. They ended up with one. That may be the hardest truth in the whole list. We love the idea that love begins with searching, choosing, and declaring. But for most of human prehistory, geography made choices first. Group size made choices second. Death made choices third. Elders, scarcity, injury, and timing finished the job. And yet, even inside that pressure, people still formed attachments. Real ones, They still got used to one another's breathing, still learned each other's moods, still built trust in bad conditions, still felt loss when that bond broke. That is what makes this story dark and human at the same time. Love was not absent. It just had to grow in a place that gave it almost nothing. People like to imagine prehistoric romance as wild and pure, untouched by society. But the real version was built on proximity, pressure, function, and fear. These were not cartoon cave people stumbling into love under the stars. They were human beings trying to build attachment in a world that kept interrupting it with hunger, cold, injury, and death. Strip away the fantasy, and what remains is not primitive love. It is love under pressure. And that is much harder to look at. Which one shocked you the most? Drop it in the comments and subscribe for more dark prehistory.